In this lecture, we're talking about Time.time, and we're setting up a mechanism so that this game object knows how long it's been since our game started. We're printing that information to the console. Let's get going. I'm going to start this process by creating another object that can fall from the sky. So I'm going to click on one of my obstacles, Command D or Control D to duplicate. I'll rename it at this point to call it something like dropping object. Nice broad general name there. It could be anything. It could be a stone or a rock or a giraffe. Who knows what it is you want to have fall in your game. I'm just going to resize it a little bit so it makes sense to me in terms of being a good dropping object. And I won't put it too far up in the sky because I want to be able to show you what I'm doing here without too much fuss. But you can see in my game window, we've got a shadow. So you get a little bit of a hint that it's going to drop down onto the ground. You can rearrange the direction of your shadow by clicking on your light or clicking directional light in your hierarchy. And it doesn't matter where this is positioned in your scene. If I can click on it there, it doesn't matter where it's positioned. It can be positioned anywhere. But what is important is the rotation of it. So I hit E on the keyboard. Now when I rotate, you can see it changes the position of all my shadows because that's where the sun is coming from, essentially. So I'll have this fairly top-down or straight uppy-downy. So the shadows are showing pretty close to where the object's going to drop. And while I'm here, I'm going to make a different material for this object. So I'll click on one of my materials, Control D, and then I'll rename this to be dropper color. And you can see I've got multiple paradigms here. I've got the actual color, green, dark, blue, and I've got functionality. And I think that's okay on a small project like this, but at some stage I'd want to have some consistency, I think, on that. But it's okay for now. I'm going to drag that over on top of the dropper so I can see my changes happen on the dropping thing, and then click on my base color, and I'll just find a color that I seem to like in here. There we go. I'm going to go for a dark orange kind of thing, just to create something that looks a little different to my other objects so that you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the orange thing. Side note, I'm getting a little bit annoyed, I don't know if you are as well, seeing this big camera projection here. It's showing me where is your camera looking at the moment. I don't really need to do that because I'm not concentrating on the camera at the moment. So over in my hierarchy, I can click on the little eyeball symbol next to the main camera, and that will just turn the camera off in my scene view. It doesn't turn it off in the game view because we can still see our game. If I click on play, I can still see that the camera is moving around, but it just stops it from getting in the way, which I should have done a while ago, but I didn't get around to it. And there it is. I've just hidden that for now. Okay, back to this dropping object. Well, what I want it to do is when a certain amount of time has elapsed, it goes boom and drops onto the ground. Maybe that's a way of us saying to the player, don't stay in one spot for too long, because if you take longer than, 5 seconds to get past the first obstacle, all these things are going to drop from the sky and completely kind of smash into that area. And so we've got a problem and we need a solution. I think this is a really great time for me to introduce this as a game design, game programming concept. So you've got this in your toolkit. What we've got is a problem to solve. We want to make an object fall from the sky after, let's say, 3 seconds has passed. And so we need to come up with a solution for that. Step one is we need a timer. And there's a few ways to do a timer, but we're going to use the Time.time approach. And I'm going to explain that in this lecture, how that works. We also need a mechanism that allows us to do a thing if 3 seconds has elapsed. So for that, I'm going to use an if statement, and we'll talk about that in an upcoming lecture. If 3 seconds has passed, then do a thing. And what's the thing? Well, we need some way of having the object falling from the sky. And the way I'll do that is by disabling and then re-enabling gravity. So we'll use Time.time to know if 3 seconds has elapsed. And then when 3 seconds has elapsed, we need an if statement that says, turn on gravity for this object. So there's my problem, there's my solution. And as you get better at game development, you'll get more of these solutions that you already know about, so that when a problem comes up, you can say, aha, I've done this before and I know the solution to it. One thing I wanted to touch on is the Unity documentation is really good for getting some extra information, some extra knowledge. I know in today's day and age, we have generative AI, so you can go search for a lot of these things and it will give you the answer. But the Unity documentation is probably where that information is coming from. And sometimes just by scouting around, you can find ideas and you can get some extra information, a bit of extra structure. So you can see in the Unity documentation, I just searched for Unity docs time. We can search for Time.time, but you can search for Unity docs time, and that will take you pretty much to this page. I'll also give you a link against this lecture so that if you can't find it, you can click on that link. And that's taken me to Time, which is a class within Unity. All these things here on the left-hand side are classes in Unity, so it's kind of interesting to go through those and have a look. And this Time class has a whole bunch of properties that come along with the class, that are inside the class, that we can access, that we can get the information from. Some of the things we can update and change, but most of them we can just get the information. We can get the value, if you will. And one of those things down here is time, which is a property that shows us the time at the beginning of the current frame in seconds. In other words, in our case, since we pushed the play button. So if I click on that, you can see there's a little bit of extra information about how to use it, some example code, etc. So this is what we did before generative AI, and I think this has still got some value for us to come in and have a look at the Unity docs from time to time, particularly if we're looking to get a little bit of extra information. So it's time for me to give you a challenge. I want you to print out the time that has elapsed, and I've given you all of the information you need to figure this out, so hopefully it makes sense for you. Start by making a new script called dropper.cs, and then on every frame, print out to the console how much time has elapsed since the game started. And if that's all you need to get going, then pause the video and take on that challenge. If you'd like a hint, here is the hint. Use time.time within a debug.log statement. And that debug.log statement we place in our update. And then as with all of our scripts, we need to add it to a game object so that the game knows about it. I'll add mine to the thing that is doing the dropping because that's the thing that I want to know how much time has elapsed before I need to drop. So there's your challenge. Pause the video. I'll see you back here when you're done. Right, step 1, scripts folder, right click, create mono behavior script. I'll call this dropper, because that's what it's doing. It's causing something to drop. Or if you're in North America or elsewhere, it might be called a dropper, but for me, it's called a dropper. I'm going to drag that script over the top of my game object, which is the dropping object, and you can see there it has the dropper script. I duplicated it for a purpose so that we still had the object hit script on it. Because when we duplicate, we get all of the things that are already on a particular game object. Now let's double click dropper to open that up. I'm going to remove my comments just because it bugs me that they go off the screen because I've got my screen so zoomed in so that you can see what's going on. So I'll get rid of that for start and update. We know what those are by now, I think. Within update, we need to be looking at a debug.log parentheses. And within our parentheses, if we wanted to print out a statement, we would use our quotations. We're not printing out a statement, we're printing out something that has a value, and that is Time.time, semicolon. So every frame, print out the value that is contained within Time.time. So how much time has elapsed in our game. Back to Unity, click on the console, click on play, and hopefully, yeah, you can see this 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. So on this particular object, it's printing to our console the amount of time that has elapsed since we clicked our play button. And that's all I wanted to do in this lecture. Good stuff. I'll see you in the next one.